In the deep heat of the southern summer, the plantation stretched endlessly under a gold and red horizon. The air was thick with the sound of cicadas and the weight of labor that never stopped. Among the rows of cotton and sugarcane stood a young woman named Clara, the plantation owner's daughter. She lived in a grand house that looked over the fields like a silent judge, but her heart was far from what her father expected. Though she was treated with comfort and wealth, Clara carried a sadness she could not name, a feeling of emptiness that no luxury could cure. Her father, a man of pride and cruelty, believed that power meant control, and kindness was weakness. He saw his workers not as people but as tools. Yet one day, as Clara watched the field from her window, she noticed one man working differently. His name was Samuel. There was strength in his movements but also a quiet patience that seemed to defy the harshness around him. When others lowered their heads in exhaustion, he lifted his eyes toward the sky, as if searching for something beyond the pain. Curiosity grew inside Clara. She began to leave her room in the evenings, walking down the dirt path toward the fields where the workers rested. At first, no one dared to speak, for her father's orders were clear. But Samuel was different. When she offered him water one evening, he looked at her not with fear, but with calm respect. It was the first time anyone on that land had ever looked at her as an equal. That simple moment, quiet and fleeting, stirred something deep inside her. Days turned to weeks. She began to ask him questions, about the stars, about freedom, about why he never seemed angry. He told her that anger was a fire that burned both the heart and the chains that bound it, but patience could shape freedom like a blade. His words unsettled her, yet she found comfort in them. In Samuel's strength, she saw a reflection of what she lacked: dignity, courage, and peace. But word travels fast on land ruled by cruelty. Her father noticed her absence, her strange questions, her defiance of the household's silent rules. To him, her growing friendship with Samuel was not just improper, it was dangerous. And danger, in his world, always demanded punishment. What followed was the beginning of change that no one on that plantation could ever undo. Would you like me to continue with session 2, where the story deepens into confrontation and transformation? That evening, the plantation house felt colder than ever. The owner sat at the long wooden table, his face hidden in shadow as Clara entered. He didn't raise his eyes at first, just tapped his fingers on the table's edge. The silence was heavy. Finally, he spoke her name, slowly, like a blade being drawn. He told her he knew about the time she spent near the fields, about the water she shared, about the conversations she thought no one noticed. His voice carried no shout, but the weight of quiet fury was worse. Clara tried to speak, to explain that she was only curious, that she wanted to understand the lives of those who lived under his rule. But he didn't want understanding, he wanted obedience. He stood, his large frame towering over her, and said that she had brought shame to their name. He ordered her confined to her room until he decided what to do. That night, locked behind her window, Clara could hear the cries from the distant quarters. It was then she realized what her father had done. Samuel was being punished, accused of crossing the invisible line between power and humanity. Guilt crushed her chest. Every cry from the fields felt like a piece of her own heart breaking. But guilt soon turned into resolve. She waited until the house fell silent, took her shawl, and slipped through the back door. The moonlight lit her path across the field. She found Samuel sitting near the old oak, his hands bruised, his body tired, but his spirit unbroken. He looked up and saw her, and for a moment, neither spoke. She wanted to say she was sorry, that she had caused his pain, but he shook his head gently. He told her that pain had always been his companion, it was fear he refused to carry. She asked him how he could still speak with peace after all her father had done. Samuel smiled faintly and said that freedom began in the mind long before it reached the body. He told her that she had a choice too, to live as her father's reflection or as her own truth. Those words sank into her like light through darkness. From that moment, something inside Clara changed. The walls of her father's world no longer felt unbreakable. She promised Samuel that she would help him and the others, not out of pity but out of justice. He told her to be patient, that change needed courage and timing. The night ended with silence, but both of them knew that something had begun that could not be undone. Would you like me to continue with session 3, where Clara takes action and the story reaches its emotional climax?